Alright, one step closer to Sunday, and it can't get here soon enough. However, we did learn some intriguing storylines around Nick Sirianni's decision with the run game. And it turns out Philly might not be making the trip to Australia in 2026 after all. So why is that the case, and what did owner Jeffrey Lurie say about plans for a new stadium? Also, despite a lot of doubters around Jalen Hurts, the Chiefs have noticed a major difference in QB1 this go-around. Let's talk about what that is and why Vic Fangio's defense could have a mismatch nightmare for the Chiefs. Plus some really promising injury news and everything else from the Super Bowl. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? So let's change this up and actually start out with a little international news. Because there was initially a report from the Herald Sun that Melbourne, Australia would host an NFL regular season game involving the Rams and the Eagles in 2026, which Roger Goodell declined to comment on. However, when Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie was asked about it, he immediately threw cold water on the idea. Okay, so what he ended up saying is that it's an impossibility because it's the Rams and that would end up being Philly giving up a home game. And yeah, that makes perfect sense because Philly literally just gave up a home game to play in Brazil. Again, you think 2 years later you're going to do the exact same thing for Australia? Understandable. Granted, it's not like Lurie or the team is against playing in Australia. Heck, the organization recently took their marketing rights down under to grow the game and add a few Birds fans via the connection of Jordan Mailata. So even though Lurie said giving up a home game is impossible, he did say he was open to a game in 2026 as long as it didn't involve being the designated home team. And again, honestly, I'm a fan of that as long as they don't have to lose a home game at the Linc. Although speaking of the Linc, Lurie was then asked about the rumor of Philly getting a new stadium in the near future and whether or not that would be a dome.
You're torn. I love outdoor football. I love it. I love the cold games. I like the hot games. I like the snow games. On the other hand, does Philadelphia deserve to host the Super Bowl, NCAA Final Four? Lots of great events. It's an incredible sports city. Does it deserve that? Yes. So you got to balance all those things.
Look, I'm not going to lie, that's something that I'm totally against, especially if that means eliminating the idea of playing outdoors. I know it could be a retractable roof, but call me old-fashioned or whatever, but there's something special about playing in the outdoors, in the elements, with no protection whatsoever.
What do you think the temperature is? 1.
Okay, seriously, I am curious what you guys feel about this. Would you prefer to move to a dome, or do you say stick with the outdoors? Let me know in the comments. Also, just a reminder, while you're letting me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because as long as you've commented, hit the like button, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, then you got a chance to win this Saquon Barkley signed helmet, which again, reminder, I'm going to give away during the Super Bowl stream on Sunday. Look, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the more I think about it, I just don't know how the Chiefs are going to stop 26. Like, he hasn't been held to under 100 yards rushing in a game this season that he's had at least 20 carries, which is what has Tim Wynn of The Athletic saying success against Saquon Barkley this season isn't measured by stopping him, it's whether you've kept him from dominating. Except as we've seen, that's easier said than done. Plus, it feels like Saquon's going to make quite a bit of history on his birthday. Heck, he's just 30 yards from passing Terrell Davis for the most rushing yards in an NFL season, and 53 yards away from having the first 2,500-yard season. Oh yeah, and then this part is kind of crazy, but only 150 yards away from passing Brian Westbrook for the most postseason rushing yards in Eagles history. And that's for an entire career. And then there's 169 from passing John Riggins for the most rushing yards in a single postseason. And for those wondering, 205 yards would end up breaking the Super Bowl record. And although Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo has made it no secret about trying to stop the most dangerous of Philly's attack, like I've shared in past videos, there's no secret that Kansas City's run defense has been below average. Even if they want to argue that selling out to stop the run hasn't been a theme against teams like the Buffalo Bills or the Houston Texans. By the way, if Spags did end up doing that, Jalen Hurts is going to have a monster day, but I'll get into that in a second. To stick with the running game, though, Jeff Stoutland deserves a ton of credit, even with the addition of Saquon Barkley. Yet, believe it or not, it was actually Nick Sirianni who insisted on the change of Mekhi Becton to guard.
Ooh, yeah. I'm going to have to go ahead and sort of disagree with you there.
Yeah, I thought that would be the case because honestly, a lot of us aren't really necessarily buying that. Whenever I first read it, I was thinking the exact same thing too. But thankfully, we've got it straight from the source.
I'm not going to lie to you. I never knew that a 6'7", if you go back and look through the history books of a 6'7" guard production, you're not going to find too many. And it was during OTAs where Nick said to me, Coach Sirianni said to me, let's just try him out for a couple practices. Let's just see how he does. And I was like, cool, let's go.
How about that? Sirianni might know a little bit more than we give him credit for. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I doubted him quite a bit, which, I think if everyone's being honest, there were a lot of people in that same boat about questioning his identity, which is really the perfect time to bring up the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Now, a lot of you guys know that I was the victim of identity theft as well, and heck, how many times do we have some scammer posing as me whenever we do a channel giveaway? Like in this day and age of scary AI and hackers, you can't be too careful. So when Aura reached out offering a sponsorship and free trial, it was a no-brainer. Like not only will they identify data brokers exposing my info and submit opt-out requests for me, but they also filter incoming text messages and calls so that I don't have to worry about what's fake and what's real. The best part is that it's really easy to set up so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, and identity theft insurance. You get everything at one affordable price. By the way, while we're talking about cost, Aura offers each adult on the account, which you can have up to $1 million in identity theft insurance, which covers losses or anything that you get into there. Like I said, I'm not leaving myself vulnerable anymore or my family to data breaches or brokers, and you can too, which if you want to do that, go to aura.com/Philly, try it out for 2 weeks for free, or just click the link in the description. All right, back to what I was saying about Jalen Hurts. Despite all the haters and doubters of his games, the dude just shows up in the biggest moments. Because as Saquon Barkley and others called it, he's got that it factor and clutch gene.
That sounds like a DNA thing.
I don't think there's anything that Jalen can do to be in the conversation with those three guys as players. I agree with your point that the Super Bowl it elevates the perception of him. But talent-wise, I don't think Jalen's ever going to be into that group.
If the Eagles win, he'll join Joe Burrow and Tom Brady as the only other opposing quarterbacks to claim a playoff victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's interesting because after that game, they gave him the $250 million contract, and they clearly have better receivers than the Chiefs and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So I think there's a lot on the line here for Jalen and how he's going to be perceived if he can pull this off.
Part of me says that's true, or at least I hope that it is, but the other side's going, look, even if the Eagles win, it's going to be, Jalen Hurts helped by all these other teammates, it's not on him, which, again, at least there'll be an asterisk. Some will say, no, it's not fully his Super Bowl. For whatever reason, QB1 continues to get the hate. But I don't know, maybe eventually people will wake up on Jalen. Although at least we can say for the Chiefs, Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie, they've noticed some big improvements in QB1 compared to the last Super Bowl.
His mental, you can tell he's a smart quarterback. You can tell he knows the game of football. He can ID coverages, know where the weaknesses are, and he's one of those dudes that it's hard to tackle.
He's got better mentally, reading coverages, being decisive, eliminating mistakes on his end. I think he became more of a well-rounded player, less running, more sitting in the pocket, being more patient in the pocket. So I think he's grown in that aspect of the game.
Apologies on the audio there. I couldn't find the quality clip, but it is interesting to hear from both Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie mentioning the mental aspect of Jalen's game being the biggest growth, which obviously bodes well seeing how QB1 played in the last Super Bowl. Of course, the idea of Spags being probably the best defensive coordinator when it comes to dialing up exotic blitzes and disguises is something Jalen will need to account for.
Spags doesn't major in pressure. He's situational, and he's the best in the league. And he uses defensive backs as pressure players. Like, for instance, during the regular season, only the Bucs had a higher percentage of using DBs as pressure players than the Chiefs. And as you know, that's hard for offensive linemen. You've got your hand in the ground. You've got a certain field of vision. It's hard to see defensive backs.
This is going to be one of the biggest matchups to watch, at least for me, because especially if Spags designates too much attention to Saquon Barkley, then Jalen could have an absolute field day. Now, sure, Hurts was one of the worst QBs against the blitz last year, and we saw how that one played out. But with Kellen Moore, QB1 ranked as the 7th best in the league when facing the blitz this season. And like we saw in the NFC Championship game, when Jalen was presented with the look of the blitz, he changed the play and goes to his favorite weapon in A.J. Brown. Still, if you look at what Kansas City tries to do, and I know you could say that for just about every team, but especially with Kansas City, they really try to limit the opposing team's best player. So between Saquon and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, it's pick your poison with this team. Which is why I could very easily see a big game from Devontae Smith. Or definitely a big role from Dallas Goedert. Because in case you weren't aware, KC gave up the most yards to tight ends in the league. So just my 2 cents, but again, whenever you look at the analytics, you start breaking this thing down, I just can't see a way that Dallas and Smitty don't go off. Granted, we all know it's going to take everybody.
We're going to look to win any way we can. I've never doubted our passing game with the people that we have there, with the coaches that we have there, with the players that we have there. So, there have been games that have been dictated differently this year. If we need to run it 50 times and pass it once, we will to win. If we need to do vice versa, we will. And we really don't care what anybody else thinks. Our job is to win games and try to win games the best way we can for our team. And like I said, just because Jalen said it, and I loved it, just because we haven't done something doesn't mean we can't.
We have a great team, but we all want to do it together. And that's the reason why we've been successful, and it's going to take everyone again this Sunday.
That might be the best part and the hardest part about defending this team because they can win in just so many different ways. But here's some good news when it comes to the injury report. We already got the report over the weekend that Landon Dickerson will for sure play and is good to go. But then add to it now with Cam Jurgens also officially being on that page.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the trainers and the medical staff. They've been working around the clock and helped me out, and I'm in a lot better shape now than I was last week.
You know, let me just say this. I think sometimes we overlook the impact that Cam Jurgens has had. I mean, the dude literally seamlessly filled in for Jason Kelce, and this offense has not missed a beat there. Still, massive to get Cam Jurgens back, Landon Dickerson, like I said, but the full injury report will be out over the next couple days, so make sure to subscribe. I'll have that for you as soon as we get it. However, for those wondering about Brandon Graham's status, it seems like he might have told on himself with Zack Rosenblatt sharing, BG said, I'm excited to play in this game. But then when asked to clarify, I tried to walk it back and say, well, we'll go through this week and see. I mean, I think the vast majority of us already assume that he's going to play. I mean, he will play out there, but it's just you start reading the tea leaves, he makes a comment like that, you listen to some of the press conferences, he's going to play in the game. The bigger question is, what type of impact does he have? And although he didn't share that, he does expect the first big play to be made by Zach Baun.
I got to go with my guy Zach Baun because that boy up for DP of the year. So, hey, that boy, I expect him to go out and give me everything he got all the time because that's what he showed in practice. So he'll be the first guy that I think that'll make a big play.
Why not yourself?
I mean, I'm keeping myself under the radar because I'm sleeping right now. And I can't wait to Sunday. I'm trying to stay low profile.
I like that question. So who do you think that's going to be? If you had to choose, who's the first defensive player to make a big play? I mean, mine's a given. You know I'm going to say Nolan Smith. I mean, you can't really go wrong with whoever you say there. Because for those wondering about the field conditions, thankfully we don't have to deal with that crap we played on last time in Arizona. In case you weren't aware, New Orleans uses a synthetic turf, so it won't cause near as many problems as what we saw in Super Bowl 57. And yeah, I think I speak for all of us that in itself is a huge benefit, but there's actually a little bit more of a mismatch than you might think. Everyone realizes the Birds defense plays with a ton of speed and naturally is one of the big reasons they're #1 defense in the NFL. But check out just how big this thing is for Philly.
I was told that in his first defensive meeting here at the team hotel, he gathered the players and he showed them these numbers. They are 5-0 on artificial turf this year, giving up a ridiculously low 11.6 points per game. That's a full touchdown better than the #2 team, the Chargers, and the #3 team, the Vikings. They've got speed on all three levels. This is Turf Nation S5 turf that they have at the Superdome. It is designed for quote-unquote high performance, a.k.a. speed. And the Eagles have speed on defense, 5-0 this year on artificial turf.
Yeah, I'm absolutely buying into that because, again, we've seen this team play on turf and they just seem so much faster. But yes, FYI, the Chiefs have played on turf 5 times this season. They are 4-1, but defensively, they're not very close at all to the Eagles. So again, on turf and knowing Andy Reid is going to call a lot of quick screens, rallying to the ball is crucial to keep KC off the field. Also, shout out to Johnny Page for doing the Lord's work because he went back and watched every sack of Mahomes and every interception he threw. With his big takeaways being first, the Eagles have to get the Chiefs behind the sticks early to win on first down. And then after that, the recipe for success to only rush 4 while bracketing Kelce. Now, admittedly, that will probably end up being a bend but don't break theme most of the day, but it should be successful. The trick is to keep Mahomes contained and throw in a new wrinkle every now and then.
Every time I've played Coach Fangio, there's been different change-ups and different things that he's thrown at us, and I think that's what makes him so great is he's not going to just do exactly what you saw the last time. And so I'm sure there'll be blitzes in the game. I'm sure there'll be times where they play coverage. It's going to be a chess match, and you want to go up against the best, and he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, and it'll be a great challenge for us as an offense and as a football team.
They are a nickel defense. They do not want to take Cooper DeJean off the field. The flip side of that is the Chiefs were one of the highest percentage multiple tight end offenses in the NFL, playing 2 and 3 tight ends. So what gives? Do the Eagles stay nickel because that's what they are, and because Kelce's essentially a receiver more than in a sense a pure tight end? Or are there times where they take DeJean off the field and go with that 5-2 front that they play? I think that's another interesting part of this game. And again, we don't know the answer to it. My guess is they will not take DeJean off the field very much at all.
Look, we all know that the answer is to never take Cooper DeJean off the field, but I will say that that's one storyline we haven't heard talked up too much, is that the Chiefs' running game does need to be stopped. As soon as you make them one-dimensional, Coop stays on the field, this team remains in nickel, and we've seen exactly how successful Fangio's defense is in the nickel formation. By the way, I did want to clarify that it's not that I think A.J. Brown won't have a good game. It's just wondering who the Chiefs try to give extra attention to. Again, the difficulty of playing Philly's offense is that you can have a play well defended and still be wrong with how many weapons they have. So regardless of how AJ's used, it's fair to say Swole Batman is locked in.
I just got a text message from Fletcher Cox. He just told me no matter what you done up until this point, it doesn't matter. You got to go out and prove it on Sunday. And I needed to see that.
Let's go. We are almost there, and I'm telling you what, I cannot wait till Sunday, but it also can't get here soon enough. This week is going at an absolute crawl. I'm sure that you're right there with me, but do me a favor, hit the like button, make sure to sub if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys in the next one. This has been the Philly Special.